Good evening. Welcome to our special meeting of Municipal Council for Wednesday, October 16th, 2024. I'd like to call this meeting to order at this time and meeting of our Municipal Council. I wonder if there are any declarations of interest from members of Council. Seeing none, I will move on to item C. This is the Land Acknowledgement Statement. The town of East Gwillimbury recognizes and acknowledges the lands originally used and occupied by the First Peoples of the Williams Treaty First Nations and other Indigenous peoples. And on behalf of Council, I thank them for sharing this land. We also acknowledge the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nations as East Gwillimbury's closest First Nation community and recognize the unique relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and the waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and we join them in these responsibilities. We are at item D, and that is deputations. There are no deputations on our agenda. Before we proceed with the Fire and Emergency Services Workshop, I'd like to begin with a statement on the Howard House fire in East Gwillimbury. Some of the following was taken from my statement published on October 12th, shared on our website and social media channels, and it's important to share here tonight. On Friday, October 11th, a fire destroyed the Stephen Howard Jr. house, which was designed by the town as being of a cultural heritage value or interest on January 19th, 2025. On behalf of Council, I'd like to express my gratitude to the brave firefighters and emergency personnel who battled this fire. Thankfully, no one was injured. Built in 1864, the Stephen Howard Jr. house was known for its architectural features. Its original owner, Stephen Howard Jr., was the son of one of the first Quaker settlers in our area. The property was slated to be relocated to the lands adjacent to the historic Sharon Temple. While this fire just occurred, together we will assess and determine next steps with diligence and with care. The loss of this or any heritage property is a loss for East Gwillimbury. To the Howard family and to the East Gwillimbury community, I am saddened by the loss of this historic home, and for the future, it will never be seen. We will now proceed with the East Gwillimbury Fire and Emergency Services Workshop. I will now ask the CAO to provide introductory remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we have two topics on this evening's workshop. First is our Fire and Emergency Services presentation, and then followed by an update on our Health and Active Living Plaza. So just with regards to the first piece, just a very couple brief comments. It was about a year ago that we initiated a review of our emergency services area. And in early January, late December, early January, there were some leadership changes in the emergency services area, and there was a lot of work done to focus on a myriad of recommendations that came out of that review. And you're going to hear more about that in the next couple of months from the chief. But tonight we won't be going specifically into the results of that review, but that time will come in the next couple of months for us to report back, and we're very optimistic that we've got some great news to share with you in terms of some of the benefits of the efforts that have been made over the last 12 months. One of the things that took place is the leadership change, and we had interim Fire Chief Broussard up until about the middle of the year, and for the past 4.5 months, we've had Chief Mainprize, and I'm really delighted that we were able to get Chief Mainprize to join us in EG. He's, as we say it, he's been where we're going, and we know that we are going to see this community continue to grow and change. And as we look at program and services across our organization and sort of ensure that we're meeting the evolving needs of the community, one of the areas that's going to be key to that will be our emergency services. So I'm hoping tonight Chief Mainprize can provide you with a really good overview of his assessment, 4.5 months in on the job, current state and a little bit of food for thought in terms of things we need to be thinking about as we plan and move forward. And I think it's a really tremendous precursor to the budget process that's just around the corner. So with that, Madam Mayor, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Mainprice.
Madam Mayor, members of council, thank you for the opportunity to present our 2024 overview of the East Gwillimbury Fire and Emergency Services and an update on the work that our team has been doing. Great, thanks. To improve our organization and ultimately the service we provide to our community. Joining me tonight from our EGFES administration team, Deputy Steve Cook and Deputy Shauna Davidson, recently promoted to the position, and the newest member to fill out our administration team. Both long-term members of EGFES, and I'm excited to have them on our team as we move forward. As the new EGFES fire chief, a key priority was to complete a comprehensive analysis of our department's operations, program, training, budgets, long-range plans, and to start building, sorry, if you could just go to the next slide. And to start building positive relationships with our team members, key stakeholders, so we could develop priorities to improve the services we provide our community and the health and wellness of our great team. Our presentation tonight will cover the criteria that we use to evaluate each aspect of our department, the documentation we use to complete our analysis, an overview of the department's operational performance, a summary of our analysis and key findings, the actions we've taken so far in 2024 to start down the road of continuous improvement, and some key priorities that we've identified to improve our service. Next slide, please. East Gwillimbury Fire and Emergency Services is a composite department serving a growing community of approximately 43,000 people through an area of 245 square kilometers. EGF employs a dedicated team of career and paid-on-call firefighters who are strategically located throughout our community to provide fire protection services through the OFM recommended service model based on the 3 lines of defense. The 3 lines of defense model consists of public fire safety education, fire safety standards and enforcement, and emergency response. It's imperative that to be effective, all 3 lines must work together to provide community safety. Next slide, please. EGFES is regulated and governed by several important pieces of legislation. The primary piece of legislation that regulates the Ontario Fire Service is the Fire Protection and Prevention Act, the FPPA. The FPPA has 10 sections that provide the legislative governance for the fire service. Some of these sections include the municipal responsibilities. These are a public education program and certain components of fire prevention, and to provide other such fire protection services as it deems necessary in accordance with its needs and circumstances. It also includes 10 other sections that regulate the fire service, including responsibilities of the fire marshal, fire code, inspection, rights of entry, and employment and labor relations. Next slide, please. The second piece of regulatory legislation is our establishing and regulating bylaw. This bylaw mandates our organizational structure of EG Fire in our service mandates. Our bylaw states our core services shall be fire suppression and emergency response, which include emergency pre-hospital care, specialized rescue, and training. It also includes fire safety education, which includes the distribution of fire and life safety information and public education programming, residential home fire safety and alarm awareness, and the provision of smoke alarms in residential homes for those in need. It's important to note that our E&R bylaw says what we do, not what level of service that we provide. Next slide, please. EG Fire is separated into 4 divisions that have unique priorities for managing the overall organization. Our administration team is responsible for managing all branches, and it oversees the direct day-to-day operations, including current long-range strategic planning, capital and operating budgets, procurement, labor relations, recruitment, retention, management, employee wellness, policy and procedure development, and the management of our community emergency management program. Our Prevention and Public Education Division inspects all buildings to ensure compliance with the Ontario Fire Code, complete site plans, subdivision plans, building plans, and in compliance with the Ontario Building Code. We conduct fire investigations to determine cause, origin, of circumstances, and our Public Education Department distributes fire safety information, including the teaching of children, our adult community, and any member of our community who needs assistance with fire education. Professional standards. This branch is responsible for developing, implementing, and delivering staff training to meet our legislative requirements and industry best practices, including recruit training, officer development, fire operations, hazardous materials, and pre-hospital care. And finally, our operations team provides an all-hazards response to mitigate emergencies, including fires, hazardous materials, medical, technical rescues. And additionally, our operations team supports our public education and prevention division with delivering education and inspections. Next slide, please. As briefly mentioned by our CAO, 2024 was certainly a year of change at EG Fire. Started with an interim fire chief who was contracted to oversee the organization during the recruitment of a new fire chief. A deputy chief was seconded from operations to manage operations during the transition period. A new fire chief was recruited in early June. The operations deputy was extended to the end of the year. A second deputy was seconded to manage our prevention, education, professional standards, and emergency management. And a new fire service coordinator joined the team in September. I'm proud of our new administration team who worked collectively to bring many years of fire service experience, education, and knowledge from a diverse background who's going to strongly represent this team and move it in the right direction. Next slide, please. To complete our analysis, we based it on 4 key priorities. We used community risk to identify hazards, frequency, and predict the severity of incidents. Evaluate organizational risk to evaluate our liabilities, employee relations, service levels. Our operational risk to assess our training programs, equipment and performance, and our employee health and wellness through Occupational Health and Safety Act, mental health, and workplace culture. Additionally, we reviewed recommendations that we as an organization have made in the past, recommendations that have been made by independent third parties. We compared our performance to fire safety standards and our deployment models of comparable fire services. Next slide, please. We started our analysis with the community risk assessment that was presented and received by Council in early 2024. This document assesses the current building stock, occupancy types, previous fire history, and many other socioeconomic environmental impacts to assess the risk to our community. This assessment of the CRA identified an increased level of risk associated with the number and size and complexity of the building stock within our community, additional risk related to the transportation of dangerous goods and people, increased electrical and stored energy facilities, special hazards associated with propane storage facilities, fertilizer storage, additional hazards including confined spaces, building height, and hazardous materials. The mitigation of these new and emerging risks will form part of our community risk reduction plan and a focus of our key priorities going forward. Next slide, please. The next step in the analysis was to review the 2006 and 2017 Fire Master Plans in addition to the 2023 Fire Master Plan update. This review included hundreds of pages of documents, dozens of recommendations from previous plans, and some of these highlights include, in the 2006 plan, the comprehensive operations staffing model, prevention and public education, construction and relocation of fire services, and emergency management program staffing. The 2026 plan was the only plan that actually ever included any operational recommendations that we could find any evidence that were implemented. The 2017 plan included recruitment of additional training and paid on-call firefighters, multiple prevention and public education initiatives, development of standards for cover of policy approved by Council. You'll see that one's highlighted, and I'm going to talk about it more in a moment. And upgrade and repair to the Holland Landing Fire Station. One of the key themes through each of the fire master plans and the fire underwriter survey was that Council was provided recommendations for a level of service, and they adopt those on a going forward basis. I'll speak to more of that in a moment. Next slide, please. The 2023 Fire Master Plan update included all of the previous recommendations and several new or updated recommendations to capture the new training and certification standards that have been implemented by the province. It included recommendations to meet the legislative requirement to complete a community risk and reduction plan, minimum staffing requirements, and again, establish standards and KPIs to evaluate levels of risk for all divisions. Review and update the current E&R bylaw, which is currently 12 years old, space needs analysis, fleet repair, purchase, and maintenance program, and investigate shared services with neighboring municipalities. Next slide, please. In 2022, East Gwillimbury and Georgina commissioned a report to identify opportunities to improve their fire services. The report did not recommend any merger or consolidation opportunities, but it did identify 8 key areas for future exploration, including automatic aid, special teams, fleet services, training, prevention and education, group purchasing, fire station sharing, and emergency management. Next slide, please. Fire Underwriter Survey completed a survey of the town in 2016 to establish a public fire protection grade for the town. This grade is a key factor used to determine property fire insurance rates within the township. The intent of this grade is that it's shared with insurance agencies province-wide, and they use that rating to evaluate risk in the community when they're underwriting homes. The fire underwriter study included 17 recommendations: to procure additional fire apparatus, improve training for officers, improve training facilities, improve prevention and pre-planning programs, improve water supply, improve the first due engine and ladder coverage, improve total available fire force available, and improve any in-service apparatus company staffing. Next slide, please. In 2022, again, a staff survey was completed which identified several opportunities for improvement which served as the catalyst for the fire service review completed by an independent third party. The review further identified additional opportunities for continuous improvement. As mentioned by our CAO, you'll be receiving a presentation, I think, December 17th. It'll be presented by myself, General Manager Gandhi, and the President of the East Gwillimbury Firefighters Association, Brad McGougal, to talk a little bit about that update. A number of recommendations came out of it, so I'm not going to talk about it too much today, but I think it'll be an excellent presentation to talk about the progress that we've made. Additionally, we reviewed many of our internal documents related to training and deployment SOGs to assist with our analysis. Next slide, please. Within our departmental analysis, we reviewed a significant amount of data to evaluate our operational performance, including the main types of incidents by percentage. Our review of this data over the last 5 years shows the incident type percentage has changed very little from year to year, including our year-to-date 2024 data. There are some changes coming to the region with a new tiering medical system, which may result in some changes to the percentages in 2025 going forward. We'll further understand that better once we see the changes actually implemented. And the percentage changes, or the percentage call types that you see on the slide, are consistent across fire services in Ontario. Next slide, please. This slide shows the first and second apparatus response times for the last 5 years measured to the 90th percentile. Measuring to the 90th percentile is the accepted norm to demonstrate performance and is the benchmark for all NFPA standards. Measuring to the 90th percentile represents what happens 9 out of 10 times. Some municipalities, some cities, they measure to the average, which shows 50% or higher and 50% or lower. Measuring to the 90th percentile is a true representative of your organizational performance. East Gwillimbury has compared our operational performance to NFPA standards, but has not adopted or established any level of service as recommended by the Fire Master Plans or the Fire Underwriter Survey. No mandated level of service is required in the province of Ontario. The province has mandated levels of service with respect to training and adequacy standards for several years, and they'll be achieved by 2026. Additionally, NFPA standards are referenced as industry best practice. EG has adopted several NFPA standards with respect to training, communications contracts, equipment, and fire inspections and sprinkler design, but not any operational standards. Next slide, please. As mentioned in the previous slide, municipal fire services are not mandated to meet any NFPA standards. However, it's widely accepted they're best practice and should be considered when evaluating performance. The province of Ontario has mandated fire departments must do training in accordance with NFPA, but we don't have to respond in accordance with the standards that they train us to. In EG, again, we've adopted several of them with respect to communications and equipment, but not with how we respond. All previous fire master plans have commented on comparing, on how we should or should we consider comparing our operational performance versus the NFPA standards. NFPA considers a fire department a volunteer department when it's more than 80% of their staff are paid on call. Sorry, as a career department, when more than 80% of their staff are career staff. Next slide, please. 1720 standard considers a department a volunteer department when more than 80% of its staff are volunteer staff. Interestingly enough, EG falls right in between the two. We don't actually meet the definition of either one. It's also interesting to note that a review of the last 5 years of our data, we've never met either standard, ever. Next slide, please. In addition to comparing our recommendations in our Fire Master Plan, the Fire Underwriters Survey Comparison of NFPA standards, we've also included a comparison to how other municipalities provide fire service within their community. Again, while not an exact comparison, you can see these are the closest 10 departments or municipalities with population, similar land area size, and similar call ratios with respect to, in a comparison to EG. The slide shows a resource level within East Gwillimbury is quite different than many other municipalities. Next slide, please. So, a summary of our findings. The administration team reviewed 3 master fire plans in a 17-year period, 1 community risk assessment, 1 joint fire services review, 1 fire underwriters survey, 1 staff engagement survey, 1 internal third-party survey, and all of our internal documents. And we found the following. We have a well-resourced and well-developed public education program that meets our legislative requirements and the needs of the community. We've adequately resourced fire inspection plans and review program. We've made progress in the development and the implementation of local data to help support decision-making. We've made adequate investments in resources, in vehicles and equipment. We have an adequate emergency management program that is well supported with our partnership with York Region. Both the Mount Albert and Queensville fire stations are excellent facilities that meet the current and projected needs of the service. And another thing that we found that we weren't able to measure by any of the reviews is the quality of people that work for EG Fire. Unmeasurable. What we have determined, what we had the opportunity to learn, especially for myself over the last 4 or 5 months, are the quality of the people that are here, how much they care about their community, and their willingness to make this a better organization. Next slide, please. Our analysis and summary of our findings improved some areas that we have opportunities to improve. Our review identified EG Fires not completed any substantial operational recommendations contained in the 2016 or the 2023 Fire Master Report or the Fire Underwriters Survey. The establishment of any service levels that meets the needs of the community, the comparison of any current levels of service against established industry best practices, the development of any long-term growth or service plans, or the updating of the ENR bylaw, which is currently 13 years old. A number of additional non-operational opportunities include improved employee engagement, reduce organizational risk by updating policies focused on staff equity, improve training accountability, and reduce costs by moving recruit training in-house, improve fire prevention and public education programming using incumbent staff to improve the service level at no additional costs, and to standardize our fleet vehicle purchase, procurement, and maintenance program. Next slide, please. Key priorities that we are identifying is that we need to establish and update policies and procedures in all divisions to meet best practice and legislative requirements and reduce organizational risk by implementing policies focused on staff equity. Develop and implement a long-range training program that meets the requirement of the modern fire service to support the health, safety, improves accountability, and reduce costs. Establish and implement a comprehensive records management, learning management, inventory, staffing software program that meets the needs of the fire service. Improve the operational service level throughout East Gwillimbury with a specific focus on Holland Landing and the Southwest Sharon areas. Update the Holland Landing Fire Station to accommodate 24/7 operations for a diverse group of staff. Significant number of opportunities available to improve employee engagement and establish a positive and supportive workplace. And again, improving our public education and fire prevention using incumbent staff. Next slide, please. Going forward, since June of this year, we've made measurable improvements in several key areas at EG Fire. Our administration, with your approval, we've established a new organizational structure. We've recruited 2 interim deputy chiefs, recruitment of a new fire and emergency services coordinator, development of new policy and procedure program to update all of our SOGs and policies. The recruitment, still ongoing, of 12 new POC firefighters. We've reinitiated the collective bargaining process. We've created and implemented a new EGFES branding program. Within our professional standards division, we've established OFM learning contracts to deliver the NFPA 1001 and 2 firefighter certification, NFPA 1002 pumper operations, and 1072 hazardous materials. We've created and will deliver an in-house recruit training program starting in December of this year. We've implemented a practical skills training program that includes both our career and POC firefighters. We've used neighboring facilities to complete critical skills training to both career and POC staff. And our prevention and public education. We're in the process of creating a fire safety assessment program that will be delivered by our operations staff, and we're updating our smoke alarm program throughout the community. We're researching and investing in a digital pre-planned inspection platform to be procured in 2025 and initiating a digital file conversion program. Within our operations division, we've redeployed our full-time operations staff from Queensville to Holland Landing when staffing is available to improve the service level at Holland Landing in Southwest Sharon. Development of long-term fleet replacement and standardization program, which has already started. And again, research and implement an updated POC notification system that provides real-time access to resources. And we've initiated the service review and recommendations. It's certainly been a busy few months for our team. We're happy with the progress we've made in several areas, and we're continuing to build relationships with our new team members, stakeholders, and we're excited about the future of EGFES. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions from members of council? Go ahead, please.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. Through you, listening to your presentation, what was different than what was documented, listening to your words, you kept coming back to a service level establishment and the fact that we don't have service level providing operational standards for our service levels, and you kept saying that, and it wasn't anywhere in your slide. So other municipalities have service level standards that the town is looking to meet. Are you, because you kept verbally saying it and it wasn't written, is it your intention to bring forward to council a service level standard for us to discuss and debate?
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Johns, that's correct. You'll see an update to the ENR bylaw in 2025, which will include recommendations to establish service levels throughout the community. It's quite common within an ENR bylaw to establish either standard response times, travel times, or staffing amounts. Quite common in ENR bylaws, and you will see that recommendation when the update comes in 2025.
Go ahead, please.
Thanks. I got a couple follow-ups. So, okay, that's great. And one of the things that we've been looking for is those KPIs to be able to determine against those service levels. So I think that that's great that that you're doing that. Just from a context perspective, I grown up in the community, and we saw the service. Well, I see the team growing. Like, we started out with a fire volunteer team, paid on call and composite, and you tripped over in your presentation saying the word volunteer, but you did have the word volunteer documented. I trip over the use of the term saying volunteer, and I've been corrected a couple times in these past couple weeks using the word volunteer, but I want to get clarity, because my understanding on the paid on call, when the call goes out for the full-time team members, and then there is a second call for paid on call follow-up, is that voluntary or involuntary that they are showing up to a call?
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Johns, excuse me, sorry. Our paid on call staff, and again, it's synonymous with the term volunteer or part-time staff. It's kind of used unilaterally throughout the province depending on the municipality's history. But our paid on call staff, when paged to attend an emergency, their response is voluntary. It is not required.
Okay, it's voluntary. Okay, so then my follow-up question to that is, because it is voluntary, how many times in the last 6 months have our full-time team gone out to a call, and because it is voluntary, that the paid on calls, for whatever reason, there was a no-show, that nobody came?
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Johns, approximately our year-to-date total this year, approximately 80 times, we have not had a response from our paid on call contingent.
You referenced the study that was done regarding the partnership with Georgina and exploring that, and you talked about some of the benefits that did come out of that. That was a pretty heavy document. I think it was like 400 pages, but I did read most of it. I'm not going to say word for word, but the spirit of what I took from understanding that in the decision of not to move forward. Obviously, multiple reasons as to why, but one of them that stuck out for me was on Georgina's side, a reference to a call out of our fire suppression staff that they felt that we were much lower in comparison to Georgina. Do you believe that assessment of what my reading to be correct, that that was one of the factors in not pursuing?
Yeah, through Madam Mayor to Councillor Johns, your recollection is correct. My understanding was one of the rationale was there was an imbalance or a disproportionate number of operations staff in Georgina compared to East Gwillimbury. I believe the chart's not up there, but I believe it shows that their operations staff is a contingent of 44 versus ours of 20.
Great. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Leahy, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, through you, Madam Mayor. My top priority as a councillor, as it has consistently been over the past 2 years, is community safety. And leading community safety is the Fire and Emergency Services Department. And my question is a very straightforward one, basically a yes or no answer. Based on the staffing that we have available today, can we effectively respond to the risks in our community, which is growing?
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Leahy, I'm not sure I can answer that with a yes or no question. So with your permission, I'd like to add some context, if that's okay. Certainly, fire safety, the risk of someone being affected by fire in our community is generally low. And if members of our community implement important fire prevention within their homes and they establish working smoke alarms for early detection, their risk of being injured or worse, killed in a fire is quite low. When fires do occur in our municipality, I will be realistic. We do not have a significant number of resources that could be, important to mitigating, the risk or the damage of a fire or the risk of spread to other resources, and probably even, equally important, the risk to our staff. I think our community is safe generally from the risk of fire. However, I do believe there's an opportunity for us to provide a higher level of service in the community, not for the members of this community, and also equally important for the safety of our own staff members. I hope that answers it without a yes or no.
Yes, that does. I think basically, if I'm interpreting your response clearly, the answer is that based on the current staffing levels that we have today, there are risks to our growing community. That's correct, right?
I certainly think there's not, so through Madam Chair to Councillor Leahy, I do certainly agree that there's an opportunity to provide a higher level of service to the members of our community. And one of the ways to do that would be to improve our operational response.
Very good, thank you. I do have a follow-up question, Madam Mayor. So you referred to at the beginning of the presentation the 2006 report. And I'm curious about what the service level was that was suggested back in 2006. And even if the master plan was not updated for the fire department, why wouldn't we stick with an original plan?
Through Madam Chair to Councillor Leahy, the 2006 Fire Master Plan, again, multiple hundreds of pages of recommendations, data included in it, but it did include quite a comprehensive recommendation with respect to operational staffing. That staffing was based on what was going to be the projected increase in the community from a population, building stock, and risk. I do believe, I think it's fair to say that I don't think the community developed at the rate that Fire Master Plan was making the recommendations at, but some of the recommendations with respect to converting from a fully paid on-call complement to the migration to a composite department were implemented. There were several more multi-year recommendations that address the staffing of Holland Landing and Mount Albert as well to a fully career department. But those, I believe, were based on what they believed to be projected development schedules at the time.
Okay. And so was there, and just to follow up with that, to provide clarity, was the incremental increase based on the population compared to today?
Through Madam Chair to Councillor, I don't know. It just talked about, this is our recommended plan. It didn't have documents that said, if you hit 20,000, do this. If you hit 25,000, do this. That wasn't included in the recommendations. It just made recommendations that said, you know, based on the increased population and community risk, we recommend staffing and it had a fairly laid out program to go to partial staffing, full staffing, daytime staffing, 24-hour staffing, laid out all incrementally, but it was never tied to a direct, if you hit this population number, or if your service times hit this threshold, when you need to do it. So it had a plan that was laid out, but there wasn't a causation that would trigger when that would happen.
Okay, thank you very much. That would be, it would be interesting to revisit that and look into it further. I have one last question, if I may, Madam Mayor. You referenced the unfortunate fire of the Howard House last Friday, which was a loss for the community in terms of heritage in our community. And, but it brought to a highlight, and I had the opportunity this morning at another event in Newmarket to personally thank the Assistant Deputy Chief of Central York Fire Department, Claude Duval, because I understand that it was necessary to call out Central York to help support East Gwillimbury, because there were multiple fires happening at the same time, both in East Gwillimbury and, as it happens, I believe, if I understand correctly, also in Newmarket at the time. So could you speak to again, in terms of staffing, the potential for simultaneous fires and the risks that those pose to our community?
Through Madam Chair to Councillor Leahy. Yes, thank you for the question. So just to circle back to the incidents that occurred on Friday, several of our crews had cleared a fire on Queensville Side Road. We had one crew and a deputy still on scene. I had cleared that scene as well and was responding. I was returning home when the second call came in. So knowing that our career staff were still assigned somewhere else and hadn't cleared yet, and were well on the other side of the municipality, I requested assistance from Central. It was quite obvious, and we had information that multiple calls were confirming a working fire in a residential structure. We had no indication of whether it was vacant or occupied at the time. Certainly in the interest of trying to make sure that we had adequate resources, I requested mutual aid from Central York until I was able to determine what our resource levels were going to be like. Fortunately, we had a good turnout from our POCs. A number of them had just been returning from the Queensville. They were actually in the station in Holland Landing, and were able to provide a high level of service and quickly respond to that call, so it was great. And we kept Central York on the scene for maybe 15, 20 minutes, and then we were able to clear and release them from there. So on the simultaneous calls, certainly that's one thing we've noted, especially during the daytime over the last 6 months to a year, is the frequency of simultaneous calls is definitely increasing, which does create some challenges to try and get the proper number of resources deployed when those simultaneous calls do occur.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Foster, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess one of the things that I picked up from Councillor Leahy's questions, recruitment and retention of part-time firefighters is an issue just about everywhere now. Let's face it, our community has changed quite a bit. It's not like it used to be. A community of neighbors is kind of changed over the years, which leads to that recruitment issue. But do you still try to recruit people that are known shift workers, business owners that might be able to give you the time that are available through the day? Because we know we are a bedroom community to a certain extent.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Foster. Certainly when we're reviewing the applications for our paid on-call positions, proximity to the fire stations and their primary employment are considered. People who are on shift work or have more availability are great options for us. What I can say, this is the first POC recruitment I've ever done, so I had the opportunity to review all of the resumes that came in. I would suggest with the a lot of the candidates tend to work regular hours. That just seems to be, you know, or more jobs than one. It's probably you know, common in these days as well. So that recruitment of, you know, business owners who can leave their shop, you know, people who work locally who have the ability to leave or are available during our high demand areas are a real challenge to recruit, and not just in the town of East Gwillimbury, but across the province.
Yeah, and it always was. I know that that was one of the things that when I was with the fire service, that was always a challenge to try and recruit those type of people. You mentioned earlier 80 times with no paid on-call response. Now, is that no response at all, period, or is that not responding in a usable time, say, getting that truck on the road?
Through the chair to Councillor Foster, to date, 80 times a truck has not left the station because there's been either not enough people to put on it or no one who was able to respond.
Okay. Last question. You mentioned the recommendations from the fire master plan and the underwriter survey. There must be a number of those that are maybe a little bit easier to achieve. I'm sure you've had a look at those and just wanted to confirm that you're working towards that, obviously.
Through the chair to Councillor Foster, absolutely. So, you know, our analysis has identified a number of the things we've identified in our analysis. Some of them were mirrored or parroted in the fire master plans and the fire underwriter survey, and we're working on implementing some of those changes with the resources that we have. Trying to double down on incumbent resources, predominantly on prevention, public education, and training initiatives, because we that's where we're trying to double use our staff, if that's the best way we can, get as much out of them as we can with the limited resources that we have, and trying to work our way on to make some progress on some of those recommendations.
Thank you.
Councillor Crothers, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I just want to start by thanking you for the presentation, something that we've been asking for a long time. This entire council and previous councils have always prioritized community safety, and we've been asking these same type of questions for many years, and this presentation is giving us that data that we've been asking for, so I really appreciate that. Now, historically, we have relied on paid on call, and that combination. So I'm sort of, when I hear 80 times a truck couldn't leave the station, we've never heard that before. This is the first time that we're hearing that. So I'm wondering what has changed. I'm hearing your response about difficult to recruit. There was an article in the online about the return to work, that people were more available during the pandemic to respond, but now they're back in the office. It makes it a little more difficult. I'm wondering how this compares to previous years, and if this is a change and what can be done about it. I'm hearing what you're saying about the types of resumes you're receiving. It's not like in the past when it was a local shop owner sort of thing. So it sounds like there's been a shift fairly recently, because we've been told up to now that historically we've relied on our paid on call and it has worked, and it's no longer working. Is that true? Is there something that's happened, that it's no longer working, or just a lot of different things?
Through the chair to Councillor Crothers. So I was such a number of things. So I'll try and answer the question going backwards from the. So I think I don't believe prior until this year it was ever a measurement of how frequently there was a no response situation from our paid on call staff. So I don't know if it's better or worse than previous years. I'm just not sure. I can say there's a number of things that appear to be contributing to that. You know, the recruitment and retention of paid on call is a challenge. Again, not just in EG, across the province. You know, my kind of quick analysis of our staffing, how long they've been here, the number of years of service, it looks like we lose about 20 to 25% of our staff per year from who start from recruitment, who are here a year later, so which creates challenges to training, getting them available to drive and pump, or in a position where they can safely respond. So we do have situations where maybe we have one or two, potentially more, arrive at stations, but they're just not skilled or trained sufficiently enough to respond on their own. So it's not that no one showed up, it's just we do struggle to maintain that proper level of training to allow them to respond with an apparatus, certainly sometimes without an officer or a certification to drive or pump. So I can't say for certain if this is a new problem. I think when I look at the response data, because I didn't look at that metric. When I look at the response data from previous years, it is very similar to what it is now. So when you look at the first arriving and or second arriving truck, it's gotten worse over the last 3 or 4 years, but not significantly when I compare back to 2015, 2016. So it appeared that again, slightly anecdotally, because I didn't measure it, but when you look at the turnout times and response times from the previous years, they were also significant. So I would suggest, my suggestion would be, without fully analyzing how many people responded each time, is that they either had to wait for people or they had some long response times as well. That would be logical, but I haven't assessed how many times people, or what the staffing was for each one of those calls going back multiple years.
Thank you.
I hope that captures
Yeah.
the multi-part question.
It does. I guess what I'm struggling with is, you're the fourth fire chief since I've been on council, and this is the first time that we're hearing this. And when I hear that there's 80 times in the last year that a truck couldn't leave the station, to me, that's an urgent concern. And that it's coming to us now, and you're saying that this has been ongoing, this isn't just new, this isn't something that's just happened. Like I said, everyone at this table prioritizes community safety, and to hear about this at this level, it's very urgent, and it really, I'm wondering why we are hearing about it now and we haven't heard about it previously. I know you're new on the job, so it's not a question to you, it's more of a statement that I'm glad we're hearing about it now, and to me this is very urgent and needs to be dealt with, but at the same time I want to dig back to find out, why are we learning about this now if what you're saying is that this has been an ongoing problem? Thank you.
Councillor Roy Clemente, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, you and I have been on this council the longest, and we've been part of the change that our fire department has seen, that migration from paid on call exclusively to a composite force. And I went back to 2013, that's as far back as I could go. But in 2013, we spent $2.944 million on emergency services. And in the 2024 budget, we are now spending $5.61 million. That's a 91% increase. Our population has not seen a 91% increase, but yet we have continued to invest in this department. I'm a bit of a data junkie. So for me, the plural of anecdotes is not data. So for me, I want to see information that tells me what our call volume is, what our responses are. I can see here from slide 16 that our response time for our first truck has actually increased, and I would assume that that's the full-time truck. That our response time for the second arriving apparatus is actually dropping, and those would be our POCs. So I need more data to understand what's happening here. Slide 19 tells me that we have a full-time staff to population ratio that doesn't match that of other municipalities. But what I would also like to know is what percentage of their operating budget they are spending on the fire and emergency services. So in our case, we're spending about 17 cents on every property tax dollar that we're collecting. We're spending it on emergency services. So I'd like to understand that metric as well. Evidently, I haven't seen call volume, but it sounds to me like it may be increasing. I would love to see how that has changed. The past few years, we have been advised by prior fire chiefs that the call volume wasn't increasing even though our population had. And so the decision to add more resources was made on the prevention and education side and not necessarily on the response time, on the response side of things. So if that's changing, please tell us that call volume has changed. Evidently, our risk profile has changed. We're adding more complicated buildings and more complicated situations to our community. So our response needs to obviously change. It also seems evident that the nature of our paid-on-call staff are changing. That churn rate, I would like to see documented. What's happening there? I think anecdotally we're hearing it, that there are young and inexperienced people here who are coming from great experiences and great training, and then they're leaving for greener pastures. So what's happening from that perspective? For me, I would like to see a plan. I'm not so worried about what happened in the past because we did the very best we could with the resources and the decisions that we had before us. But we have a new fire chief, and you're coming to us with data. I would like to see more data, and I'd like to see a plan. What do we have now? How can we respond with what we have now to better address the risk? And then what's the plan going forward? It took us 6 years to get 20 professional, paid, full-time staff. It took us 6 years to get there. It doesn't sound like we should be waiting another 6 years to do for another 20. But what's the plan? How do we get there? How do we finance it? How do we fund it? So it's not really a question. It's more just a statement in response to what you've said here tonight. But I guess what I will frame it as a question is, what's the next step?
Through Mayor, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Roy de Clemente. So several components to the next step. You will see a ENR bylaw. That'll be a priority moving into 2025 that will establish, or potentially, the council's decision, establish some service levels within the municipality, or recommends establishing the service levels within the community. Should council adopt an updated bylaw with established service levels, you'll receive a fire master plan update with recommendations to implement that level of service within the community.
Councillor Crone, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to our chief, thank you for your presentation. I think this is the longest you've been on the hot seat, so you've survived.
I was at a fire Friday. It was
So well done. I am so delighted that you've joined us. You're a great addition to the senior management team, and I'm not sure who was involved with the hiring, but job well done. I like the fact that you've come from a place where we're going, and I think that was said earlier, and I believe that. I also think that we've kind of gotten away with acting as a small town fire department, and we need to grow up a bit. And so we're going through some of those growing pains in the transition that I know you're trying to help us with. So I do appreciate that. I do want to comment on some of the remarks made by my colleagues here around data. I think data is great. You shared some really interesting figures with us today that we haven't seen, and I'm not sure I've seen them in my 6 years. So I may be wrong. I have a short-term memory, but that's good stuff, because with good data, we can all make good decisions. And so I appreciate that. There are a couple of things stuck out to me. The chart where you listed all the other communities with full-time firefighters, and a lot were hovering around the 40. I think it averaged out to around 40. We kind of stick out like a sore thumb with 20. Is that your subliminal attempt to coax us into hiring more?
Right. Through the chair to Councillor Crone, I'm not sure if that was a rhetorical question or not. I think really, I tried to provide an analysis of the department using 4 separate tools. One was recommendations that we had generated ourselves. One was recommendations that came from independent third parties. One was recommendations from fire safety standards, and one was a comparison to other municipalities. I didn't want to make recommendations or draw a comparison on a single source of truth, so I thought utilizing multiple sources was a better option to paint a picture of where we are today. So I don't know if it was a subliminal attempt or a sleight of the hand to do it. It was really just trying to find 4 ways to demonstrate where we are based on my analysis of the department.
Okay, I approve anyways. I like where you're going. And I think just by the very nature of our town, through you, Madam Mayor, I think there will always be a need for paid on call. I don't think we're ever going to shake that, and that's a good thing. I think the paid on call guys do a great job for us. The other data set that you gave us was on the response times, and I know some of my colleagues have asked about it. What's your comfort level around the current response times, and if you're not comfortable, how do you see us improving that?
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Crone. Again, if you'll indulge me, I'll just comment on your POC comment. So I agree, right? I think our contingent of paid-on-call staff are tremendous individuals who sacrifice time away from their families to support our community, and we're lucky to have them. They are a tremendous resource, especially for a depth of service response when it comes to either responding to significant events or multiple emergencies. But we need them, and I suspect we'll have a need for them for a very long time. So just a slight comment on the POC. Thank you. As far as how can we, so my analysis of our response times is I think there should be an emphasis placed on reducing those within the community. When you're seeing 13 and 14 minutes initial response times, I believe that is longer than what we should look for a goal. I also think that second in response time, it's very important, especially in significant events, for the safety of our own, for A, to provide effective service, but B, to provide safety for our own staff. I think that, so reducing those first and second in response times improves the community safety, and certainly I think makes the job a lot safer and a lot easier to make decisions. If you're a firefighter standing at the, trying to make decisions on whether this is a go or no-go incident or what you're gonna do, and you're not sure yet if support's coming, just because the nature of a POC department, those are very challenging decisions to make. And our staff do it. They've done it here for a long time. It seems normal to them, like when you talk to them about it, they normalize that. That's unique to me, for them to normalize making those decisions of how they're gonna operate, not knowing whether they have support coming, and the decisions they have to make, the tactics they have to utilize based on the staffing resources that they have. So, so I do think we should make an effort to reduce them. I think a strategy to do that would be to certainly operationalize Holland Landing as quickly as reasonable possible.
Thank you. Just one last comment, Madam Mayor, through you to the chief. I will just, if I can give you some friendly advice, having worked corporately for 20 years in my last role, I dealt directly with our board of directors as the VP, and you want to give, as your board here, you want to give us enough information and data that will lead us to the right decisions, but don't swamp us with data. You're the expert. We rely on you to tell us what you think should be done, and we have that confidence in you. We're not going to be getting into the minutia with you in the data. So tell us what we need to know, but don't give us a tsunami of data either. So free advice to you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's it for me.
Councillor Lehigh, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. Through you, Madam Mayor. Respectfully, I would like to say that I cannot sit here without stating clearly that it is not the first time that I am hearing about concerns in the fire department. And the fire service has raised concerns for a number of years about the fire issues and challenges, and as recently as the previous elections. So I have been consistently asking questions, and I would like to ask our new fire chief a question, which I asked the previous fire chief, and at the time I received an unsatisfactory answer, in my opinion, although I am not an expert in the fire department, so I'm going to ask you now in terms of long-range training and the plan for training in the fire department. I asked the previous fire chief with regard to the new buildings that we have opening up in 2020. 2025, we have two large new buildings, the Loblaws Advanced Distribution Center on Woodbine, as well as the Health and Active Living Plaza, which we're going to hear more about later this evening. So my question is, what specialized training is required, and what unique risks and challenges will be in place with the opening of those new buildings?
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Leahy, thank you for the question. Certainly, as buildings grow in size, both footprint and height, the complexity of fire operations is magnified inside of them. We currently have a number of tools on order to address some of the new challenges that we're seeing with respect to a residential high-rise, which is also a vulnerable occupancy that has opened inside the municipality. Once we receive some additional equipment, we have some staff that we've already sent for some preliminary high-rise training. So they've received that training 3-4 months ago. I think they went and they took it. We have additional training or additional equipment on order. Once the additional resources arrive, we'll be scheduling and completing in-house training specifically to deal with some of the height challenges with respect to the high-rise structures, as well as what would be long hose lays, complex situations inside the large industrial buildings. So we've started to train our own staff to deliver that in-house training so we can meet some of the challenges associated with those buildings.
Thank you.
Are there other questions? Councillor Carruthers, go ahead, please.
Thank you. And just for some clarity, my comment was this is the first time we've had a chief stand before us and give us this type of information. And I just wanted to, as I'm thinking more about this, I wanted to get some context around that 80 number, because it's a very scary number when you hear it. I'm assuming that the paid-on call are the second truck going out, so in these instances, another truck has gone out. It's not like people are standing on their front lawns and no one's showing up. These are second trucks, I'm assuming, if you can clarify that. And I want to know how this number of 80 relates to the total call-outs to our paid-on call.
Good. Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Carruthers. So when these situations occur, a couple of situations potentially happen. So if there's no response from our paid-on call, depending on the nature of the call, our career staff will clear the call they're at. They'll try and balance priorities based on the information they're receiving. So if one call sounds a higher priority than the other, they will either redeploy themselves to the higher priority call based on the information they've received, or they will complete their operations at one call and go directly to the other one. Or sometimes what will happen is they'll respond to the call, and it may be a multi-truck incident. So whether it's a fire, an alarm call, a significant car accident, our response matrix might call for 2, 3, 4 apparatus. So of that, maybe we only get 2, maybe we only get 1. So we just don't get the depth of response required for that type of alarm. So someone likely goes, but it wouldn't be the appropriate number of resources initially that we're requesting based on what would be our response matrix.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification because, well, it is urgent. I maintain that it is urgent that we address this. I think we want to ensure that our community knows that they're safe, and it's not a case of no one's going to show up. It's just that we're not getting to the level that we would like to be at, which is a very different case. So thank you for that clarification.
Councillor Roy DeClemente, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, slide 15 gives us a breakdown of the 2023 incident types. And I note, I added them up, and there's 1,470 calls in 2023. And based on my understanding and recall, it's not in front of us, but I believe our average over the past few years has been 1,100 to 1,200 calls. So we are seeing an uptick in the number of calls. This slide shows that there's a 20% of our calls is other. Can you tell me what sorts of calls those might be, given that we have pretty much covered all the other ones?
Through Madam Mayor, to Councillor Gwillimbury. One of the unique aspects of the fire service is when you're not sure who to call the fire service. So we end up at some unique situations, which might be something as simple as maybe a lockout, maybe someone's locked out of their house, animals locked in cars, literally the cat in the tree. So some of those other calls fit the criteria of when you're not sure who to call fire, and we'll get it sorted out. So yeah, just some unique, literally lockouts, something, I'm not sure what's going on, can you check this out? Or, I think I see something over there, but I'm not sure. So something we just can't fit into, we have about 60 categories in the CAD to fit fire calls into. Sometimes we still can't find the correct spot for it, because they can be quite unique.
Thank you. And if I may, just through you, the 80 times that the POC truck didn't roll, it may be helpful to understand what sorts of types. Obviously, a call to 911 and a call to the fire department is a call for help, and it's an urgent call based on the person who's made that call. But I often hear, again, anecdote is not data, but I often hear that it's because it's a cat in a tree and not necessarily an exciting call, and that may be why your response is different. I don't know, is that a factor? The type of call that comes out onto the pager?
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Gwillimbury, the information that the paid-on-call staff receive through the what would be a traditional paging system is limited. So it doesn't provide a tremendous amount of details. For example, you're responding to 123 Main Street for a medical call. The nature of that call is not clearly expressed through the paging system. It can be on occasion, but generally it's not. So something that, I guess the severity or the excitement of what they're responding to, in my opinion, is irrelevant. When you put a call out for help, if it comes in as a medical call, and whether it's somebody who's maybe has some significant medical conditions, who's potentially frequently in the hospital, or they have some challenges, versus an injured child across the street, don't matter to me. If you need help, you need help. When you call for help, you should get help. Some calls, I guess, are more exciting than others. I think it's important that when we respond to calls, we don't gauge how we do that on the potential excitement of the incident. We respond based on the opportunity to serve our community, whatever their needs may be. So if someone has a CO alarm in their house with no symptoms, we should go, and we should assist them. We should find out what's going on, and whether it's a significant fire emergency. I do think that when people call for us, we should provide the level of service that we can.
Thank you. That's a very eloquent answer. I appreciate it.
Councillor Johns, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. I'm listening to the dialogue talking about the data and then kind of breaking down that 80 and whatnot. Like for me, the importance, the data is important. One mention is that the call time response was going up for full time, and then the paid on call was dropping. But like, I spent the first part of my life on a farm, on a loading dock, like boots on the ground. And then as I'm moving through my life, being able to look at data and then interpret and have that benefit of the hands-on experience of what that data means. And I think that truly understanding what the data means, even though it's presented to you, is important. And I think that there's been some discussions here tonight looking to clarify the importance of not showing. And Chief, when you first came on, through you, Madam Mayor, when you first came on board, you spoke to us about, spending time with the team and jumping on the truck. I'm hesitating asking this one, I'm gonna ask it anyway. I'm gonna say the quiet things out loud. Since you've been here, outside of the times that you rode the truck, have you or your deputy had to jump on a truck, whether it be an apparatus truck or a pump truck, to go to a call because we didn't have somebody else show?
And through Madam Mayor to Councillor Johns, there has been a number of occasions where, so we were stationed in Holland Landing. We waited what we thought was a reasonable amount of time to give our paid-on-call the opportunity to respond first, based on an apparatus either being tied up somewhere else or what appeared to be potentially an urgent call. Myself and Deputy Cook have either driven the apparatus because they didn't have someone available to drive that particular time, or myself, I've rode in the apparatus as a firefighter and in some occasions in the officer position to facilitate the truck in a response.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Are there any other questions or comments? Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, through you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to thank you. I wanted to thank you for not minimizing the 80 calls, because as you eloquently stated, it's important to every individual who makes a 911 call. But I would also like to assure everyone in the fire department that, again, it's a priority that we take care of those who take care of us as residents in East Gwillimbury. So thank you very much for your service.
Thank you, Chief. Take a breath. We very much appreciate the time that you've spent taking us through your last, how many days is it now?
I think we're about 4.5 months.
4.5 months. I'm sure sometimes it seems like years, and other times it seems like just the week has gone by very quickly. I can tell you that with members of the public here that I have heard both from community and from staff and elected officials how impressed they are with your style of leadership. And we look forward to having many years with you in making sure that East Gwillimbury is safe as it can possibly be. So thank you so much for choosing us, and thank you for being here today. I'm sure this is the first of many times in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. It's a pleasure to serve and be part of this great team. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Foster and Councillor Johns, could I have you move? Thank you. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are at workshop number 2. I'm wondering, I'm hearing some, let's have a little stretch for 5 minutes. And of course, those that are with us tonight, you might have been sitting too long as well. So I'm looking at the clock. It's 7:12, let's say 7:20 to come back, have a little stretch and perhaps even some conversation. Thank you.
it,
Sooner than later. It's working again, but it just needs
What
to
was the matter?
charge. It's
We are now on item 2, Joint Parks, Recreation and Culture, and East Gwillimbury Public Library presentation, Town of East Gwillimbury Health and Active Living Plaza. I will ask General Manager of Parks, Recreation and Culture and the CEO of East Gwillimbury Public Library to go through the HELP workshop presentation, please.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, on behalf of the Health and Active Living Plaza staff project management team, we're pleased to provide a thorough project update at this special council meeting and workshop. The Health and Active Living Plaza is the largest project in the town history. $78 million fixed facility construction contract, a $2 million event street, and a $10 million park development project. 3 separate projects make up the Health and Active Living Plaza project. With land value and project management and design, the project's roughly over $110 million project. No cost to the taxpayer, entirely development charge eligible. This update today will focus on construction progress, the capital budget, the operating budget, and then preparations by our staff team to prepare for operations at the Health and Active Living Plaza and some of the next steps. Next slide, please. So the Health and Active Living Plaza journey started just under 10 years ago when we procured the land, which is a 16-acre site in Queensville. The land was procured absolutely at no cost to the taxpayer through development charge credits and parkland dedication. We then went through a thorough procurement process for construction management, and now we're at the point where we're well into construction, excellent progress on site, anticipating substantial completion by Q2 of 2025. We're also going to be making preparations for the park construction by tendering that project late this year to hopefully be in the ground in the spring of 2025. We also worked with finance to up our development charges for the park from $7 million to $10 million, which was successfully completed last year. We're undergoing thorough pre-qualification of general contractors. Once we've tendered the project, we'll be reporting back to council on a construction value, hopefully a construction awarded contract, and then completion of the park in 2025 and 2026. Next slide, please. Our staff team is thrilled to report that we are well below the council-approved budget, and that includes the base contract for construction and any contingency that has been approved by council. Next slide, please. In preparing for operations for the facility, we provide a summary to council. This is broken out by cost center or areas of costs, so namely the staff in each of the areas that will be staffing the facility. And then you can see the operation costs, which are supplies, materials, and service contracts. Keeping in mind the building is under warranty for the first year, and as well it is a phased occupancy, so occupying into Q2 will experience half these costs in 2025 with the full exposure to these costs in 2026. Next slide. Oh, sorry, I should also, please, if you can back up that slide. I should also mention there is a very large revenue offset, and that's with a very robust program and permit schedule and special events and ancillaries, which are service contracts that we have within the facility, namely food service contracts, and an update that we'll be providing council hopefully before the end of the year on a fitness service contract as well. Next slide, please. So over the past year, we've experienced some significant budget drivers that have adjusted our cost centers, and then we've also made adjustments to our revenue centers to help offset some of those costs. Some of the drivers that we've seen is a part-time minimum wage increase over the past year. In addition to that, we did a part-time study, a market analysis, in particular in the aquatics area, where we required to adjust some part-time rates to be competitive, preparing for operations of the facility. In addition to that, in light of phasing the park by 1 year, we also are preparing the costs for operating the park in 2026. So that's why you did see an increase with some park operating costs in addition to the fixed facility costs. In addition to that, we've had some light corporate pressures, namely with people and belonging to staff the facility. Initially, we brought on contracted staff, and now due to the demands and the staffing requirements, we've transitioned that role in particular into a full-time role due to demand. And then in addition to that, we've refined our programming with robust programming to help offset any of the cost centers that we've experienced some drivers with. Next slide, please. Over the past 5 years, Parks, Rec and Culture, the library, and corporate services and corporate-wide, we've been planning for the expenditures for the Health and Active Living Plaza with a multi-year funding plan. So with the 2.1 net operating costs, we've created 1.5 million in operating reserve, and then in addition to that, over the next 2 years, a requirement of an additional 600,000 that will be required to operate the facility in the fullness of time. Again, that's 2026 with the first full year of operating. I'd now like to invite Justin Tucker, who is our project manager, who is facilitating on-site construction management and construction coordination, to provide an update on the progress for construction.
Thank you, Aaron. Over the past 3 months, significant progress has been made, such as the structural steel framework for the building envelope, and utility connections, including hydro and gas, have been installed, allowing for heating to support final finishes during the winter months. Parking lot, front, and rear porches are being prepared for asphalt and concrete paving to allow access and egress to the facility. Next slide, please. The interior is coming along nicely with the mechanical and electrical systems in progress. Currently, we're testing the pools with water and pressure, getting ready for tile installation in the next few weeks. Steel framing, architectural steel studs, and masonry blockwork are being installed to form the wall partitions for each space throughout the building. Next slide, please. We've created a brief video showcasing the construction progress so far. This exciting update is designed to assist with tracking and construction monitoring for the project. The next few slides will show you the current construction progress, along with images of what each area will look like once completed. Looking at the building at the east entrance, next to Event Street, the front porch, along with the promenade, will serve as a great gathering spot and central hub for the community. Next slide, please. The next few slides will show you the current construction progress, along with images of what each area will look like once completed. Looking at the building at the east entrance, next to Event Street, the front porch, along with the promenade, will serve as a great gathering spot and central hub for the community. Next slide, please. With the exterior sheathing and steel framework now in place, the west elevation of the building is taking shape. As you approach the rear entrance from the parking lot off Jim Mortson Boulevard, you'll notice the clear sight line from end to end, enhanced by direct walkway access and lay-by drop-off zone. Next slide. Standing within the interior boardwalk, you'll notice how this corridor connects to the exterior courtyard and other facility spaces, such as the gymnasium, concession, and library, with multiple sitting areas throughout. The design includes plenty of large windows and natural wood elements, giving the space a warm and inviting feel. Next slide, please. Viewing from the pool deck into the aquatic center. Preparations are underway for tiling the deck, along with the final installation of skylights and ongoing work on mechanical and electrical systems. Next slide, please. The second floor track overlooking the gymnasium. Electrical installations for overhead LED lighting, ductwork, and sprinkler systems are nearing completion. Next slide, please. This slide offers another perspective on the current condition of the track, along with renderings of the open spaces designated for gym and workout equipment. Next slide, please. Here we see the indoor play space. The granular base is set for the rubber safety surfacing, natural timber roof, and skylight rough openings have been finished, along with framing for a large wood accent wall with built-in benches. Next slide, please. This rendering illustrates what will be installed within the indoor playground, featuring a junior and senior structure. The vision for this space is to allow children the opportunity to play indoors with the same elements typically found outdoors, such as natural wood structures and rope climbers, creating a blend of nature and play. Next slide, please. This view from the entrance of the 15,000 square foot library is sure to create a fantastic first impression, showcasing an inviting layout. Steel studs and drywall are progressing, and the space will be filled with natural light, offering flexible areas for reading and studying. Next slide, please. The newly built event street will make it easy for pickup and drop off at the facility. This street can be closed off, giving the town plenty of space for large events. Staff are working with EDI and Georgina Island First Nations to choose an Indigenous street name. Thank you, and I will now pass the presentation on to John Ingham, PRC Project Coordinator.
Thank you, Justin. I will be providing just a very short overview and update related to FF&E and signage components of the HELP project. So FF&E refers to furniture, fixtures, and equipment. The HELP project team has engaged all stakeholders to identify and itemize FF&E needs. These include modular systems furniture within public areas, IT equipment, specialized furniture and equipment for the library, as well as all supplies and equipment to support recreation programming and building operations by the facilities branch. The HELP project team has been working with staff and consultants to create detailed furniture lists in preparation for tenders. These items will be provided for operations in 2025. Next slide, please. The architect has presented the project team with a preliminary signage package. Interior signage includes directional wayfinding signage to assist with circulation. This map reflects the paths of travel through the space, along with the associated directional signage. Next slide, please. The preliminary package also provided sample designs and includes directional as well as regulatory signage. The architect will be providing a separate package dealing specifically with regulatory signage to ensure that the facility complies with regulations from York Public Health and the Ontario Fire Code. Next slide, please. Exterior signage includes site and building identification signage, such as freestanding pylons and lettering on building facades. The signage package will be finalized by year end, with signage to be tendered and awarded in Q1 of 2025. Thank you, and I will now pass the presentation back to Mr. Aaron Carmazin.
Thanks, John. Something that we're very proud of is being one of the first net zero facilities in York Region of this size and scope. Here you see 10 net zero features. The Health and Active Living Plaza incorporates over 20 net zero features. And those are basically in every discipline, whether it be structural, mechanical, electrical. An example is energy reclaim systems. So when heat is expelled from the facility, it's reused to preheat the heat going into the facility. In addition to that, we have one of the first built-in pool covers to retain heat in the very large 100,000 liter pool. And that's in an effort to retain heat, decrease our demand, and be environmentally friendly. And in addition to that, we have a number of other both structural, mechanical, and electrical features that again will help us decrease our demand and be environmentally friendly. Sorry, I'm not sure who's presenting next. Oh, Frank Mazzotta, our manager of Parks Development and Operations, is going to speak about the parkland development.
Thank you, Aaron. The Parks Branch is very excited and privileged to be working on the delivery of the town's first ever townwide park. Parks Development staff have been working very diligently on finalizing detailed design of the 8-acre park, which will include active, passive, and play zones. These areas will provide a variety of program space that residents and users will enjoy. The zones will be connected and strengthened through placemaking and will see the implementation of public art in consultation with the Arts and Culture Committee of Council. Next slide, please. To the north of the building, the active zone will be a sport-filled area that offers all ages the opportunity to be active in some of East Gwillimbury's first ever outdoor facilities, which include beach volleyball courts, dedicated pickleball courts, and an outdoor shuffleboard surface. A full-size multi-use basketball court and 2 mini soccer fields will also be constructed, along with outdoor washroom facilities, water fill stations, and cooling misting stations. The active zone will also contain a satellite parks operations building that supports maintenance of the park and special events setup and takedown. Next slide, please. This is one of my favorite slides, and this one shows the active zone that will contain East Gwillimbury's first ever outdoor skate park bowl and asphalt pump track. These exciting new features will provide kids of all ages the ability to challenge their skateboarding, scooter, and bike skills in one location. Next slide, please. To the south of the building, the passive zone is a community interaction area that extends indoor uses to the outdoors. Within this space, library users will have the opportunity to extend their reading experience from the indoors to the outdoors in the quiet reading garden nooks. Community demonstration gardens and outdoor game tables have been conveniently located adjacent to the outdoor teaching kitchen and sitting spaces. This area will also support outdoor teaching classes and can be permitted for groups or families to enjoy. The passive zone will also boast a large event space with a dedicated covered stage area for community concerts, festivals, and celebrations. Next slide, please. Finally, the play zone. The play zone that will be constructed provides children from the ages 2 to 12 the opportunity to play safely together and will incorporate an inclusive, accessible structure and resilient rubber surfacing, EG's first ever. A splash pad feature will also be constructed and is strategically located adjacent to the playground areas that can be enjoyed on hot summer days. I will now pass it along to Greg Bagley, Manager of Facilities.
Thanks, Frank. Good evening. I'll be presenting a high-level overview of facility operations and a facility resource planning information. Facility maintenance staff play a crucial role in the successful operation and longevity of a new building. Their importance can be highlighted through several primary responsibilities, which include the safety of both patrons and staff within the building, proper care and maintenance of equipment and the asset as a whole, ensuring code compliance and regulatory standards and governing bodies, and delivering on the expected service levels of our community members. Next slide, please. The core job functions of facility maintenance staff include assisting with the development and ongoing input into a formal preventative maintenance program, conducting regular inspections of the facility to identify maintenance needs, ensuring proper documentation of all relevant information is kept up to date, ensuring operational efficiency through proper maintenance of systems such as electrical, plumbing, and HVAC, and providing a high level of customer service to both staff and patrons, ensuring efficient handling of inquiries and delivering a safe and welcoming environment. Next slide, please. Within the 2024 budget, Council approved 4 facility operators. The recruitment of these 4 positions will commence in Q1 of 2025. These positions will be recruited in time to receive adequate on-site training with the mechanical contractors and become familiar with the operations prior to opening the building to the public. Next slide, please. In addition to the approved 2024 budget, the facility lead hand position will be included in 2025 budget process for council consideration. This position will be a working lead operator and the primary point of contact for both internal and external inquiries. They will focus on the overall operations of the building and the equipment. They will oversee quality control and facility operators and third-party contractors. They will also develop, monitor, and control the work activity and create the operation schedule. Next slide, please. In the spring of 2024, all current facility staff received the industry standard training and certification in pool operations, which is a certified pool operator certificate. A refresher course will be offered in 2025 for all staff to participate, and hands-on training and specific equipment review will also be coordinated once the pool operations has been fully inspected and tested. Staff have been engaged in developing the standard operating procedures for the building. These procedures will help to deliver the expected service levels and provide clarity to facility operations staff with respect to their job functions. And lastly, in collaboration with People and Belonging and through our learning management software, an in-depth health and safety policies and procedures manual will be assigned to staff for review and acknowledgement. These will focus on standards related to public health and pool operations best practices. Next slide, please. Facility maintenance staff are essential for ensuring the safety, efficiency, and longevity of a new building. They play a vital role in maintaining compliance with regulations, preserving the building's assets, and supporting sustainability initiatives. The Facility Resource Plan is designed to provide adequate services from an operational perspective, as well as support the overall customer experience. Thank you. I will now pass it on to my colleague, Rhonda Wilson, Manager of Recreation, Community Engagement, and Events.
$34,489. That is the number of part-time recreation staff hours required to offer programming at the Health and Active Living Plaza. 28,804 is the current number of part-time recreation staff hours required to offer programming at the remaining 6 EG recreation facilities. What does this mean? Parks, Recreation, and Culture is becoming a leader in employment opportunities specifically for our youth, and we're going to be busy. Although this presentation is on the help, I would like to assure Council that while we are recruiting, onboarding, and scheduling for the help, the recreation team will continue to maintain existing programming in 2025. Next slide, please. The Aquatic Center, which is a service level enhancement, will be EG's largest programmable area. The pool will generally be open Monday to Sunday and over 12 hours a day. The Aquatic Center is highly regulated by public health. These regulations specify the number of staff required to operate the pool. This is based on pool size and the bather loads. These numbers were considered during the planning, budgeting, and scheduling process. In preparation for this service level and the growth-related enhancements, staff have slowly begun planning and executing various recruitments. In 2023, Recreation hired a full-time aquatic supervisor. This position has been instrumental in aquatic policy development, planning the recruitment stages, as well as developing a plan to introduce aquatic jobs to those who have never considered it before. In 2024, we hired an aquatic coordinator to help with existing programs and planning development. Next slide, please. As we look to 2025, staff will be presenting to Council the following full-time positions: Community Engagement and Permitting Supervisor. This position will oversee permitting, events and community engagement, and the plan for recruitment will begin in Q1. This is a brand new position, will provide much needed support to a very growing portfolio. We will also be requesting a community engagement and permitting coordinator. They will be responsible for coordinating facility permits, liaising with our help partners, and support community engagement. Next slide, please. As mentioned, the Health and Active Living Plaza will be relying on numerous part-time positions. The aquatic complement will consist of approximately 85 staff, 15,000 hours of lifeguard shifts a year, 8,000 hours of instructing shifts, over 2,300 hours of head instructor guard shifts, and 650 hours of aqua fitness. But of course, it's not all about the pool. Between our gymnasium and our pod spaces, Recreation plans on recruiting for fitness instructors, preschool and children instructors, camp and integration counselors, birthday party leaders, and drop-in leaders. This will help program the remaining 6,325 hours. Next slide, please. As we prepare to recruit over 150 part-time staff, recreation staff and people in belonging have been working together to create a plan, ensuring staff are trained and prepared for opening day of the help. As we begin 2025, following the budget approval, staff will begin the full-time recruitment process for the help. People and Belonging and Recreation have developed a 3-phase recruitment approach for part-time positions. Phase 1, starting in Q1, will focus on general resume collections for any positions at the help. We will host a job fair and include on-the-spot screening. The team will also visit local high schools and promote the help and employment opportunities. Phase 2 will begin in Q2 and carry well into Q3, and that will be our aquatic wet screenings, and of course our interviews will begin. Staff will launch Aquatics First recruitment program. This program will engage members of our community who are not currently certified but are looking for employment. Our staff will work with individuals to get certified, trained, and hired. And phase 3 will focus on hire, train, start, recruiting individuals who are deck ready and can begin in Q3. PRC and People in Belonging have a very busy 2025, but we are extremely excited to build an engaged and strategically aligned high-quality programs, to deliver high-quality programs and customer service excellence. Next slide. Over the last 2 years, staff have worked towards securing convenient and complementary services to enhance our resident experience at the help. Z Eats has been secured as our food service provider, and currently staff are working on an MOU with a fitness provider. More information will be presented to Council at a later date on that partnership. Thank you, and at this time, I'd like to introduce the EG Public Library CEO, Sandra Sador. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rhonda. East Gwillimbury Public Library is very excited to activate the spaces at the new Queensville location. And part of activating space in a library is the dedicated team that serves the community every day. And we are making plans and preparations for those positions. Next slide. In looking at council-approved positions, you can see that we are laying a foundation of experts that will come in and offer not only managerial experience in library service, but also as well in coordination of our expansion as we grow and expand to deliver service in Queensville. In addition to that, We have part-time team and our customer service team. We are dedicated to exceptional service, and that is critical for EGPL as we expand into this new space and the activation of so many new and diverse offerings in our libraries, from maker spaces to an expanded collection to diverse programming and to our front counter operations. In addition to that, pending for 2025 is 2 student shelver positions just to assist us in the delivery of our service. So let's explore what some of these team members will be doing. Next slide. Certainly with the makerspace, we need a digital experience specialist, and this individual will come on board, activating and sparking curiosity in our community with new experiences, both for those that are experience makers and for those that just want to try out this new experience. Our customer service specialists will create an experience when you walk through the door. It's connecting those interactions, those one-on-one, searching for information, directing people, and connecting to information and ideas. Our collection and resource specialist is an individual dedicated to ensuring that we have that diversity in our collection to serve those that are moving into our new neighborhoods and expanding East Gwillimbury. Their needs are different and unique, and we look to really including the IDEA action plan in our collections. We want our spaces to be welcoming, and we need our team there to make that happen. As made mentioned, we have our students that are busy and available and ready to keep our collection in top order. Next slide. As made mention, we do have a foundation in place for the management of this new space too as well. And with the new role of a manager of people and development, we're ready to expand our services and our team as we build our East Gwillimbury Public Library culture. Our coordinator of administrative services too as well is coming alongside our manager of people and development to ensure due diligence is kept as we grow as an organization. Our coordinator of customer experience will do just that, making sure that every interaction is of value to the community we're serving. They'll set service standards and provide training to our onboarding customer and community service specialists, who will be there every day serving the public and meeting their needs. Next slide. So let's take a look at our growth and how we're getting there in terms of positions that are filled in 2023-2024. So in order to get our collection in order, our collection and resources specialist was brought on board in November 2023 and has been working diligently since. Our coordinator of administrative services was a conversion, so that part-time position became full-time in July 2024. Our manager of people and development inboarded in October 2024 and provided, as I made mentioned, just to lay the foundation for our expanding organization. So to date, 25% of our positions have been hired and filled. Next slide. So moving forward, what will recruitment look like? This is an exciting time for East Gwillimbury Public Library, and we look forward to connecting and engaging our community and offering positions. Available positions within the community of East Gwillimbury is very important, and libraries are essential to the growth and the building of a complete community. We anticipate that these positions will be filled with community members who want to engage in a library environment. Our spring onboarding will include the coordinator of customer experience, who will provide overarching scheduling assistance, and as I made mention of, ensuring that our service standards are in place. Our customer community service specialist will come on board, ensuring outreach is done in the Queensville area and surrounding communities, connecting with school boards over the summer before our opening, ensuring that families are well aware of the services we'll be offering. Outreach will be critical, and engagement and our membership campaign, ensuring that we're sparking information and urging our community members to ensure they have a library card and prepare themselves for the opening of this dynamic new library location. As we mentioned, the digital experience specialist will come on board in spring too as well to make way for our maker spaces to ensure our technology is in place, activated, with ongoing programming available to excite and entice new customers coming through the door that are using the Help Plaza. Summer onboarding will be our final stage, and we look forward to our front hand and front counter services joining us then. Those individuals that are dedicated to our day-to-day service delivery, which include our customer service specialists and, of course, our shelving student team. Next slide. So this is just an image here of our timeline, just to capture what I've already made mention of, that this plan has been well charted. It's been put in place so that we're well prepared to serve the community in library service. We look forward to navigating this journey with Aaron and his team in terms of delivery and opening of the September 2025 expected launch. Next slide. As Rhonda has made mention too as well, onboarding and training is critical. And we've put that into place to ensure that we are working through the quarters ahead in 2025 with recruitment, following through with interviews to ensure that we are getting a qualified team and individuals that match in so many ways the dynamic space. We want representation within our team too as well. We are looking to build a diverse team and bring alongside talent and experts to serve the community. Spring onboarding will include staff development days and customer service training to really bring across, as made mention, exceptional service and dynamic new approaches to customer service. Summer recruitment will begin, that interview process too as well, and summer onboarding for our final stages for our direct front counter service team. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to deliver our staff resource planning and to just showcase in one quick snapshot where we are and where we're going. Without further ado, I'd like to call on Aaron Karmazin for his closing remarks. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sandra. Just moving forward, the staff team is going to continue with responsible project management. We're lining up council and staff facility tours. And then, as you heard, preparations for operations, ancillary service delivery. We hope to report back to council before the end of the year on a potential fitness contracted service provider, the park construction procurement and potential start of construction early in 2025. And then as well, working closely with communications to inform residents and build excitement for the opening of the Health and Active Living Plaza. I'd like to thank the Health and Active Living Plaza staff project team for presenting today. And in particular, I'd like to thank landscape architect Stephanie Fraser, who created the presentation today and coordinated all of us to put together the presentation today. I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have, and the staff are also available for any questions.
Are there any questions from members of council? I'm kind of just sitting here in awe. I probably have 100 questions, but I'm just amazed at how far we've come in a very short period of time. So congratulations to staff up to this point. It looks like it's on time and ready to go. So thank you. Questions from members of council? Councillor Crothers, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Like you, I'm in awe, and I have 100 questions. First of all, thank you. This is absolutely fantastic. And I think the question that's probably going to resonate most with residents is, when exactly is the opening? Q3? If it's July 1st is one thing. If it's September 1st, it's something else. So are we looking for a July 1st opening, or are we looking for more like a September 1st opening?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we're expecting substantial completion Q2. That would be in June. So we would be looking at, we may have an opportunity to possibly get staff in early before substantial completion, in particular in the aquatic center, to do some advanced training.
Good.
And in addition to that is we've defined the schedule as we're moving forward, and we do have, as of late, we've seen considerable momentum with construction activity. So these are best laid plans, so we may actually see that schedule with intensive construction over the fall and winter months. We may see that schedule even be advanced for delivery even sooner. But with the plans at this point, we would require after June a good 8 weeks, 2 months to then prepare for operations. So we would be looking at around a September timeframe for operations
It
and
would be
an opening to the
disappointing.
general public.
Disappointing to miss the summer, but it's going to take the time it's going to take.
We were aiming for June as Parks and Rec month,
Yeah.
but we'll get substantial completion in June, just maybe not a ribbon cutting and an official grand opening.
Okay. My other question has to do with the wonderful chart on the net zero initiatives. And for those who weren't here a number of years ago when council advocated for the addition of these different initiatives, and I'm very proud with how the council at the time balanced our commitment to the climate emergency with being fiscally responsible and looked at the initiatives that made the most sense for the payback period. And so one of those decisions was around the solar, making it solar ready, because to try and retrofit afterwards would be very expensive. But at the time, and this was 2 or 3 years ago, well, over 2 years ago, so it must have been 3 years ago, so the solar wasn't quite there yet. And it's the panels, it's the batteries. So I wanted to find out if anything had changed in the 2 or 3 years since that report had been written. We'd made the decision on that. Are we any closer to solar making sense? And if not, when will we be re-looking at it? I don't want it to get lost that we made it solar ready, check the box, we're done. We have to keep going back and finding out when does it make sense to add the solar?
Through you, Madam Mayor, through our associations, our Ontario Rec Facilities Association and Parks and Rec Ontario, we're constantly monitoring building technology as it relates to parks and rec facilities. And should that technology evolve to a point where it's feasible to introduce solar, then we will certainly, with the capital budget process, make council aware of projects as they arise and as the technology evolves and is feasible. At this point, for feed-in tariff, solar doesn't make sense. And the technology is evolving as far as the batteries capturing energy as well as storage. We'll continue to monitor those with any additional capital projects, in particular over the lifespan of the building. When it comes time for replacement of building systems, we look at the best technology of the day that's possible to, again, decrease our demand and be environmentally responsible. So the best answer is with our annual budget process. Should the technology be feasible and warranted, we'll make a presentation to council. In addition to that, we're constantly monitoring green energy management and retrofit grants and opportunities that may present themselves over the year. And we would present those to council as they are released and staff becomes aware of them.
Excellent. And just 2 other questions. One is on the event space, are we looking for a place for our farmers market along there, along the event avenue or whatever we're calling it?
It certainly is feasible and possible. I think we would certainly consult with the market to determine whether their home here is where they would like to be, or if they see themselves possibly at the Health and Active Living Plaza. We certainly have made the space ready as far as power requirements and certainly space requirements. And in addition to that, we do have, as Mr. Mazzotta had mentioned, quite a large passive area space with a pavilion and a band shell that's also conducive to hosting large-scale special events outside the facility. So we haven't got to that point with the market yet. However, it is certainly something that we can discuss with them and determine which direction they would like to go.
That's wonderful. One of the things I know that is always an issue is with the tents and making sure we have tie downs. So they use the sandbags, but that's not as good as if we were designing a space to be able to have something that they can clip into.
To stake into the ground or
Yeah.
clip, yeah.
Yeah, and then one last question around the gardens. Lovely to see that there's gardens as part of the plan. I wanted to ask about community gardens, if there's an opportunity to do any sort of community gardens in that space.
Absolutely, yeah. We have set aside a specific area in the courtyard that we would work with the community to facilitate a community garden and growing local fruits and vegetables for community consumption. So that has been identified for an area in the courtyard area just adjacent to the building. And our town horticultural staff would assist with that process with volunteers, engaging volunteers in the community as well.
That's wonderful. It sounds like it has everything. Thank you.
I'm not seeing any, oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Johns.
No problem.
Thank
I was slow to the punch there. That's, thanks, Madam Mayor. So I through you to Mr. Karmazin, I was thinking about the hiring of all the staff as we were, talking about all the hours, and I was reflecting back on the programming revenue and the permitting revenue, and I'm wondering if I recognize that we need to be ready for the doors to open. How much work is going into kind of understanding the user base in an attempt to kind of pre-sell the programming? Like, is there a way through our comms program in early spring to communicate to the residents of the programming and then kind of pre-book, pre-sell, so to speak? Because if you find out that you are weak in one area on the programming and everything is going in a different direction, maybe there's an ability to not have the need to hire as many staff in one area and then have that staff build as the programming builds. So I guess my question is there a kind of pre-sell strategy to engage people ahead of time to give you better knowledge of the hiring need? And then the second question is how much of an ability do you have to control operational wages outside of a baseline wage that is necessary to have the doors open?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to answer the first part of the question, absolutely. We'll be engaging in pre-sales with our, in this case, if we were to open in September with our fall winter program session well in advance. So advertising those programs, and that will set some of the hiring. In addition to that, we do hire flexible program staff that we could offer certain programs. If we had a program that didn't book and another one that did book, we have the ability to cross over as far as the use of the programming staff and the amount of hours that they're scheduled.
Through Madam Mayor, that is excellent, because I think you theoretically, I mean, that would be, let's say it was like 6 months, but if you looked at it annualized, from a percentage standpoint, if you can control like 10-20%, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars that we would have the ability to control, and that would better our bottom line operational number. So I think that's great that you have the ability to do that. So thank you.
Councillor LaHaye, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. Through you, Madam Mayor, I have a couple of financial questions. What does the town plan to do if we do not make up the operating budget goals, and how do you plan to make up a shortfall if it happens?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the good thing about program revenue is it's very heavily tied in tandem to expenses. For example, if our expenses, if our program revenue is down, then our expenses related to those programs would also be down. So these projected revenue and expenses are in tandem together. So at this point with our programming, we're not anticipating a shortfall based on what we've projected.
And I have a follow-up question about the, out of the $110 million projected cost that you spoke of earlier, how much have we collected in development charges for this project? And if we have not collected all of it by the time of the opening, how will we finance the balance?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, I would refer that question to our General Manager of Finance.
So through you, Madam Mayor, when we awarded the project back in 2022, we had projected that there might be a bit of a shortfall in development charge collections. And we said that if there was, and it was based on whether a development was occurring as we had projected, and if it didn't occur as we projected, we had the ability to borrow internally to make up those shortfall in development charge collections until that was collected. And so that was presented back in 2022. It looks like there, with the lack of development in 2024, it looks like there will be a bit of a shortfall in 2024. Hopefully 2025 will pick up, but if there is a shortfall, we will be borrowing internally for that.
Thank you very much for that answer to the question. I have one last question with regard to the hiring of Health and Active Living Plaza part-time and full-time staffing. We have managed to plan and pinpoint and in all likelihood paid for the part-time and full-time staffing for a building that hasn't opened yet. And however, we seem to struggle with getting a true picture of the needs for our fire service that lives depend on. And it's an institution that has been around for decades. And so my question is, if there is a way for one of our senior staff, or perhaps our CAO, or our to answer the question of why we have an issue with getting a clear picture on the needs of our fire service, but we have already planned and paid for full-time and part-time staff for a building that hasn't opened.
Madam Mayor, through you, I believe tonight's workshop was an intention to have a conversation about clarifying that picture, and I express sincere appreciation to our new chief for leading that workshop discussion this evening, and look forward to more discussions. As the chief indicated, he's planning as part of 2025 to come back with a more comprehensive plan for council for consideration. I look forward to that.
Thank you.
Councillor Crone, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to Mr. Karmazin. Congratulations to you and your team on putting this presentation together and for the work that you've completed so far. I don't think the average person appreciates just how much goes into this. So many moving parts and variables. It makes my head hurt when I see everything that you're doing, and I'm so glad it's you guys doing it. Because it looks so onerous. So well done. I know we're not across the finish line yet, but I know we'll get there. I know we were talking, this discussion is about construction, so if you'll indulge me for a second, I'm always looking for ways, to improve our revenue stream, away from residents. So is there, what sort of work have you done on naming rights and things, other marketing opportunities that we might have within with the building, with the center to leverage some more revenue that we might not otherwise have realized?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Crone. We are planning a report back to council on a detailed sponsorship and donation policy. And with that policy, we've identified existing areas in town-owned facilities that we have sponsored, as well as what our opportunities are, including the Health and Active Living Plaza. It's my experience that in order to solicit sponsorship or donation, it's always best to have a physical facility to point to. And in this case, the timing, it behooves us to put that policy before council, as well as those opportunities before council, and then to come back to council with any potential sponsors or donors that could offset facility capital construction or even operating costs.
Thank you, Mr. Karmazin. Through you, Madam Mayor, just one more. I just wanted to add to my colleague here to the left about the need for further net zero opportunities, and not, I don't often get to one up Councillor Carruthers, but it's not just the help. You know, it's other town facilities that we should be, and I hope you are, looking to help reduce our carbon footprint. Municipalities are one of the biggest actors that can impact the amount of carbon emissions. So I would just put you on notice there that we're looking for good stuff in the future. Thank you, Mr. Karmazin. Great job.
Councillor Roy DeClemente, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I actually went back and pulled the report from 2021 to figure out how much the net zero initiatives cost us. And it took some vision and it took some foresight, because that was almost $1 million that we spent in that, trying to make sure that our facility would be as forward-thinking as possible. And there was actually, I found some slides about how the building would be pandemic ready. So that was interesting fun too. But what I wanted to say, and it's really, I don't really have a question, I just wanted to say how I got chills seeing the renderings, the artist's drawings from the architects actually coming to fruition with the roof lines and the glazing and just the vision that's coming to life. This has been such a long time in coming, and the work that's been done, like I literally got chills seeing it actually come to life. And I wanted to thank you for that experience and to thank our staff team for delivering on that vision. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I just had one question, and it was regarding, thank you for the presentation. It just gives goosebumps when you start to talk about numbers and the kinds of things that we've included into this facility for our community. Do we have a handle on the number of staff that are required, the skill sets that they have, and the availability? I know that we're starting from a small group, at least we have a small group to start, but fully operational, I just know from other rec facilities that sometimes staffing, I won't say is a challenge, but it's something they spend a lot more time on than they expected.
Through you, Madam Mayor, absolutely. Each one of our sections has projected ahead the maximum and minimum staffing requirements. We are seeing continued pressure within the aquatics industry, and we're looking at different creative ways to work with people and belonging to attract more youth as well as older adults that may have discretionary time during the day to devote to aquatics and part-time employment. So I can say over the course of the last 2 years, there's been a multidisciplined team between all departments and people and belonging that have done a lot of work as far as resource planning, taking a look in particular with part-time, you know, what the maximum is required, and then given the flexibility of part-time, that you can schedule part-time when needed, and then as well the minimum complement that we need to keep engaged in order to operate.
once we get started with the facilities, then we'll be, I'm thinking more about the aquatic facilities. The quicker we can have the programs taking place, we can be training people in the early stages of their swimming career and move it forward. But I don't have a handle at all on how many are out there that are qualified through either Royal Life or Red Cross, and do they have, are they available for us? I'm hoping the number of people that have moved to East Gwillimbury that there certainly will be some gems that we don't know about.
Through you, Madam Mayor, absolutely. Some of the other tactics that we're looking at is some wage rate harmonization with our adjacent municipalities. So we don't have our municipalities to the north and the south of us exchanging staff for cents on the dollar. So that's one of the other tactics that we're looking at as sort of a rate harmonization between the municipalities. So when we do have a consistent staff base, we're not losing them, we're retaining them. We're not losing them to other municipalities that are paying a higher wage rate. In addition, we did work with people in belonging to do that market update. And so that is something that is going to make us more competitive and allow us to be more attractive as far as attraction and retention.
Thank you. My other question was about busing as far as our municipal opportunities to have buses actually working in and out of our community.
Through you, Madam Mayor, absolutely. Recently, the Region of York provided a presentation, and they're taking a phased approach. So our staff have made the request to have a dedicated route from each community to and from the Health and Active Living Plaza, a route being every half an hour, say on the hour. They're taking a phased approach, and they've ramped up their dial-a-ride program. But they have indicated that they are putting signalization on Leslie Street at Jim Mortson, and they would consider the route along Leslie Street, perhaps doing the loop around Jim Mortson. And from there, with the added demand, our hope is that they expand their service delivery to meet our demand.
Thank you. Councillor LaHaye, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, through you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to return to my previous financial question about how much has been collected to date. I don't believe I got an answer to the question of, out of the 110 million projected cost for the Health and Active Living Plaza, how much have we collected in development charges for this project?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't have a number with me right now, but I can get that for you after this. So.
Okay, so we'll get an answer after, I'm assuming at the conclusion of our evening, either tonight or tomorrow at some point. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Councillor Crothers, go ahead, please.
Just following up on Councillor Roy Clemente's call out for the $1 million that we spent towards the net zero. I just wanted for people who weren't around then to recognize that council approved those based on the time it would take for those to pay off, and it was a very short amount of time. So within, I think, 3 to 5 years, we'll be generating income from that because we were not paying extra heating costs and that sort of thing. So it was a very, very wise investment by the last council. I also want to just briefly follow up on the mayor's comments about aquatics. As a mom of someone who was a lifeguard, we spent more on the certifications than they ever earned as a lifeguard. So I think we need to really be thinking about the cost of all the training that a lifeguard needs or a swim instructor needs, and if there's some creative way to help families get their kids trained without it being a financial burden. So just something to think about. I don't know what other municipalities are doing, but just speaking as a parent, it was a lot of money to go through all that, never mind all the driving back and forth to the pool. And lastly, the comments about the 2025 budget, what we're seeing in these numbers, because we're opening halfway through the year, it's only be half that number of hours and half that number of staff. I mean, there's some managerial roles that are starting earlier, but a lot of the hiring that we're doing, the numbers that we're looking at are only half for that first year, because it's only half a year, correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the majority of the part-time hours and the operating cost centers are definitely in half, and then a portion of the full-time would not necessarily be even the full half of a year. As an example, Mr. Bagley gave an example of bringing on operations staff for facility operators in Q1 of 2025. So that first quarter essentially is gapped for those positions.
Right.
So absolutely, the first full year of operating would be 2026.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Roy DeClemente, you're good, thank you. I'm not seeing any other at this time. We have a motion to receive, be it resolved that Joint Parks, Recreation, Culture, and East Gwillimbury Public Library presentation dated October 16, 2024, entitled Town of East Gwillimbury Health and Active Plaza, Living Plaza be received. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Crone, Councillor.
Johnson, happy to, Madam Mayor.
Oh, thank you. All those in favor? And that's carried. We are at our confirming bylaw. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Roy DeClemente, Councillor LaHaye. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-071, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of special meeting of municipal council held on October 16th, 2024, be taken as read, enacted, and signed by the mayor and municipal clerk. All those in favor? And that's carried. And I have an adjournment moved by Councillor Crothers, seconded by Councillor LaHaye. Moved at, I have 8:28 p.m. at this time. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much, staff. A very exciting evening to end off. And I'm sure we'll be more excited to see you at the next meeting as well. Thank you so much.